Well, 2022 has been a big year for the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise. The Sonic movie sequel gets released, and it's a huge improvement over the first film, in my opinion. Jack Specific finally giving us figures of other Sonic characters rather than just recycling the same old Sonic and Tails figures. IDW still going strong, especially with the recent releases, and Sonic Prime will finally begin in December. Oh, and of course we can't forget about the announcement that the Japanese version of Sonic X is getting the complete series Blu-ray treatment and finally getting released outside of Japan for once. Yeah, really looking forward to that one. Anyway, November is a rather special month, as this year will be the 30th anniversary to the Sonic the Hedgehog comics made by Archie Comics. Ah yes, the series of Sonic and the Freedom Fighters and their never-ending battles against Dr. Robotnik and other foes, twists and turns, an expansive universe, and to this day it still holds the title of being the longest-running comic series based off a video game franchise listed in the Guinness World Records. So with all the other Sonic stuff going on, I wanted to pay some tribute to Archie Sonic with my own personal retrospective. My first exposure to Archie Sonic was when I was still fairly new to the Sonic franchise in general. The days of the Genesis and Dreamcast was way past my time. I have vague memories of catching a few episodes of Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog on Toon Disney, and my first Sonic game was Sonic Heroes on the GameCube. So, from what I remember, I was with my dad off to get some groceries. I waited in the car while he was off shopping, and when he came back, he decided to buy me some Sonic comics, issues 126 through 129. Yeah, it seems rather odd to start at the Tossed in Space story arc looking back at it. I opened up issue 126 and was both amazed and confused at the same time. Like, who are these characters? How did Sonic end up in space on this alien planet? Oh wow, the Red Chaos Emeralds created this Super Sonic clone that is obsessed with power, which leads into this epic fight. Cool. Yeah, this was before I found out years later that Fleetway Sonic did the whole evil Super Sonic thing first. So yeah, I have my dad to thank for getting me into Archie Sonic. Much later, I got the Sonic Mega Collection on GameCube, which had a collection of covers from Archie Sonic in the game's gallery. It wasn't much, but the covers always intrigued me, like, ooh, who's this character? What's going on here? It also had full scans of Sonic the Hedgehog's firsts to read through, which is funny because I later got a physical copy of the book just for the heck of it. After this, it was a mixture of random stories, basically whatever I just so happened to come across or felt like getting. I felt like getting Sonic the Hedgehog The Beginning, which was a graphic novel reprint of the original miniseries, back where it all began. My sister gave me some of her old Sonic Super Special comics that she had lying around. Yeah, the covers have fallen apart, but that didn't stop me from reading them. I got issue 137 at a bookstore, which was how I was first introduced to the whole Mobius X Years Later stories. And finally, I got a handful of issues when going to a comic book store, which was the first time I actually went to a comic book store, now that I think about it. After that, my mom must have been browsing around the internet and found out about ordering Archie Sonic comics via mail delivery from the official Archie Comics website. She asked me about that, and I was excited and was like, yeah, I'd like to be part of this subscription. So despite not starting from the very beginning, I was at least able to keep up with the new issues that were getting released during their time. In terms of where the mail subscription started, I think it was around the time issue 148. Yeah, during the final years of Ken Penders' time as a writer. So yeah, it was just the main series that I stuck with the subscriptions, starting from issue 148 all the way up to issue 290. While I would slowly keep up with the games, I always stuck around with the comics, all its highs and lows and the characters that have come and gone, and its ever-expanding world, well, still expanding. It was always exciting to see the newest issues show up in the mail and getting to read the next exciting adventures of Sonic and the Freedom Fighters. Even so, it's not an easy life being a Sonic comic fan. Whenever I bring up the Sonic comics with some friends, they'd have no idea what I'm talking about. The Hedgehog is more known for his origins in the games, as well as some various TV shows sometimes. But Archie Sonic was always unknown to most people, or was always considered the black sheep of the family. From my experience, I always saw so many people on the internet always look down upon Archie Sonic, which sadly still continues to this day, with people going as far as to badmouth the comic with lies and false information. Yeek. Back then it was the same old claims like, oh, Sally's a Mary Sue, too many characters, it's too serious, they're nothing like the game so it automatically means it's bad. Yeah, that last one always annoyed me. I mean, Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog was nothing like the games. Same with Sonic Underground, Fleetway Sonic, Sonic Boom. They're nothing like the game, so what's their excuse? There were times I was pretty defensive towards Archie Sonic, a white knight, if you will. I eventually managed to mellow out over it. It definitely took me years to accept the fact that comic books in general are always a niche market. Yeah, I still like the comics and all, but I know it has its flaws. And since it's over, there's no reason to go back to being all white knight over it. Well, then again, there are times I've had to correct people on certain details to Archie Sonic, but in a more mature way. So yeah, being an Archie Sonic fan is a very, very, very lonely life. 'Cause nobody reads the Sonic comics. It might be easy to find and chat with fans who like Sonic Adventure 2 or the Sonic Boom TV show, but it's rare to find any fans who genuinely like and actually read the Archie Sonic comics. The only place that felt safe to discuss this kind of stuff back then was on Sonic Comic World's YouTube channel. Man, now that's a name I haven't heard of in a long time. I can't remember how exactly I found out about this account. Basically, he was uploading videos that were scans of the Archie Sonic comics in a slideshow format, all while the comments section on his main channel became more of a discussion forum for Archie Sonic fans to talk about things. Yeah, this was back in the olden days of YouTube, when the comment section on the main YouTube channels was a lot more open, instead of being replaced by that community section thingy. But yeah, it just felt great not feeling alone when it came to Archie Sonic. Aside from that, Sonic Comic World's videos were a big help for me in catching up with the comics, being able to read through the series in chronological order, getting to read through the specials and super specials that were nice, getting more into the Sonic Universe comics. The Knuckles comics were interesting at first, but later on I was kind of stuck on autopilot when getting through the rest of the issues. He also did a few comic reviews on random issues, and honestly, I'm not really a fan of them. I mean, he's a decent guy in general and all that, but I always felt like he was trying too hard to be like the nostalgia critic when reviewing Archie Sonic. And I feel like this was back in the day when everyone was trying to be like the next AVGN or nostalgia critic. Even so, the channel was shut down when copyright claims caught up to Sonic Comic World over more recent issues being uploaded. I know some people were able to re-upload his reviews. Well, most of them. I could have sworn he did a review on issue 175, but I can't find it anywhere. As for me and the other regulars that used to hang around on his YouTube channel, we did try to move to Skype for a while, but over time we lost contact with each other or went our separate ways to our own personal lives. We've had our ups and downs over the years. Sometimes we had fun, sometimes we frustrated. I definitely remember those days where I was a bit of an ass, which I would later regret. But yeah, I just miss them all. It's kinda sad I haven't really seen them in years. Even so, I still have fond memories of Sonic Comic World. Feels like I'm the only one who still remembers it now. As the series continued on, a lot of stuff was happening during Ian Flynn's time as the standard writer. We saw the creation of the 7 Chaos Emeralds, Bunny and Antoine getting married, Knothole destroyed only to give birth to new Mobotropolis, and many, many other events. Yeah, it started off a bit rough in his earlier issues, like honestly I'm not really a big fan of the House of Cards story arc at least from what I remember, but for the most part I do enjoy Ian Flynn's writing. The whole deal with Sally getting roboticized again caused quite a bit of controversy with fans, cause, well, let's just say some fans of Sally and the Freedom Fighters are rather overprotective over these characters. I was more of the opposite, looking forward to see how Sonic and his friends will be able to save her now that Naugus is ruling New Mobotropolis and Antoine is out of battle from being in a coma. How are they going to solve all of this? This was also around the time I was collecting most of the Sonic graphic novels that were reprinting older stories, such as Sonic Archives, Sonic Select, and the Knuckles Archives. I was definitely more comfortable dealing with Archie Sonic and what was going on, as I didn't really like the meta-era direction that the games were going with. But sadly, this particular era of Archie Sonic was coming to an end once the whole Ken Penders lawsuit happened. Yeah, I don't want to get too deep into this particular topic, mainly because there already exists like a bazillion videos of people talking about the lawsuit, or just Ken Penders himself. But to keep it short, basically a former writer was suing them over character ownerships, and after months and months of legal debates, and a Sonic and Mega Man crossover happened, they decided to start a new era for Archie Sonic, erasing 90% of characters, locations, and lore that was already established, to try and start a new timeline. People that I knew that were into Archie Sonic either jumped ship once the soft reboot happened, stuck around, or had brought in newcomers who find it better than the old timeline. I was one of them that just stuck around and didn't have too much beef with it. Yeah, we no longer get to see certain characters again, but at least Sally and the Freedom Fighters are still there and still acting like how they usually are, just with minor updated designs. Plus, the new timeline got to have some fun in incorporating obscure elements from the games, such as the characters from Tail Sky Patrol to other inclusions like Breezy the Hedgehog, who is a real hedgehog running a casino in the Archie Sonic universe. And of course, the new era was more focused on their big Sonic Unleashed adaptation, which was always nice. Around this time, the meta era had already gotten into full swing, especially when the Sonic Boom era was being the main focus for a while. I stuck to Archie Sonic simply because it was the only official Sonic media at the time that felt like Sonic the Hedgehog, you know, action, adventure, a series that embraced the universe that was being established, and not relying on forced fan service and being extremely self-deprecating. Ugh. After the Sonic Unleashed adaptation, we got a few classic Sonic-themed stories. This was mainly done to help celebrate Sonic's 25th anniversary. I was a little annoyed mostly because some of these issues were just big advertisements for the Genesis games, but I was patiently waiting to see what Sonic and the Freedom Fighters are gonna do next. Once issue 290 came out, there was silence. Months flew by with no issue coming in the mail. I did remember a 3-month delay that happened due to a printing error, and I'm sure there have been other cases of delays for Archie Sonic in the past. But this felt very long. Over time, I started to notice the upcoming graphic novels were getting cancelled one by one. Once I saw that the Sonic Universe comics were canned, then that's when I really started to lose hope for the comics to return. And then it happened. On July 19th, 2017, a day after my birthday, the official Sonic Twitter account announced that Archie Sonic was no more. It was a very sad time for me as an Archie Sonic fan. Kinda felt like I had nowhere else to go. At least I paid my respects to the series with my 75th episode special for Forgotten Media, where I covered all the cancelled comics and graphic novels that were planned to be released. It is a little outdated, as there have been a lot more details and updates that were discovered over time, and my comment about my dislike to IDW Sonic is very outdated. Yeah, when they announced that Archie Sonic was canned, they immediately announced that IDW would be making Sonic comics. I didn't like this at first because, one, the announcement came after Archie Sonic announced its abrupt cancellation, and then IDW Sonic came in. I felt like it was a bit too soon and felt disrespectful for how long the Archie Sonic comics have been going for. And second, when looking at IDW's track record of making comics based off of video games like Borderlands, Angry Birds, Skylanders, and all that, they all didn't last long, maybe 5 or 10 issues tops, so I figured Sonic would share that same fate. But after hearing that some Archie Sonic staff members would be involved, and some other details, I decided to give IDW Sonic a fair chance. And it's nice. Sure, it doesn't have that much creative freedom that Archie Sonic used to have, but it still felt like Sonic to me, with the characters and all the stories and whatnot. And besides, at least it was a lot better than what happened with Sonic Forces. Which is where I am now. I was able to start at the beginning this time, and so far I've been doing well with keeping up with the series and all of its spin-offs and one-shot specials. Well, that takes care of my personal retrospective on experiencing the series as a whole, so now I'm just gonna look back at all the other weird, odd bits about the comics, because Archie Sonic wasn't always about Sonic stories. They had other things going for it that you wouldn't find in the games, like all these cool covers. Sure, they vary in quality, especially if they have nothing to do with the actual story, but there are a lot of great ones. Sonic going up against Robotnik in one of his latest creations. It's basic, but it gets the job done. Boy, Werehog Sonic ain't having it with this cover. He just really wants to see the story continue. Scourge goes super. Oh no, how is Sonic gonna get out of this one? Man, Sonic is really pissed off of this cover, which is ironic because in the next issue he looks like this. In other words, a cover that can easily scare Sega. Sometimes they get a little more creative, like having the covers for issues 189 and 190 be put together to show a more larger picture. Speaking of which, issue 225 is one of my personal favorites, where you open it up to see the full picture. Now that's epic. Yeah, the Milestone issues always had great covers. Except issue 150, that one's just pretty lame. Extreme close-up! Whoa! Here's another weird one. I mean, it's fine for the most part, but what is going on with Sonic's eyes? Are his eyebrows somehow inside of his eye sockets? This one I always found really weird. I know it's not because of Sally's face, it's because of this character. Like, who is that? Is that supposed to be Fiona Fox? Well, if that's the case, then why does she have green hair? That doesn't happen in the story. I don't know, maybe the coloring artist was drunk, or Fiona was suddenly addicted to watching Yu-Gi-Oh! Season 0. In some of the earlier issues, they had some activities, like here's one in making SWAT bots and shadow bots. and this weird connect the dots game. I'm sure some of you are familiar with this picture that has popped up as being the real solution, but that's just made up. I mean, seriously, there's clearly no dots in this area. So, out of curiosity, I found a clean scan of it, I tried it out for myself, and this is what the image is supposed to look like, the head of the original Robotnik. There were also Sonic checklists. Basically, you check off a side of Archie Sonic you want to be subscribed to, or get some issues that you missed out on. Then you'd write down the details of your address and payment method, then mail the page to the Archie Comics address. I didn't bother with this. Not sure why. I think it's because my parents wouldn't let me. They only let me stick to one particular series, which of course was just the main series. And of course we also have the Sonograms, the main hub for interacting with the readers, like showing off upcoming issues or concept art and reading fan mail and seeing responses from the Archie staff. I remember back then I didn't bother reading them, but later on I always decide to read them. So despite my cynical comments on the whole, oh no one reads the Sonic comics, these were always comforting for me, showing that there actually are people who read the comics. And speaking of fans, they also showed off fan art, some with really great artwork and others not so much. And finally there's the off panels, just these short non-canon gag comics involving Sonic in the game. At first they started off being more about Sonic characters interacting with the Archie Sonic staff members, but later on the gags focused more on being in-universe gags. I personally find these to be a lot better instead of the wacky stuff in the office bits from the older issues. Since the comics are based on a video game franchise, they also made short stories to advertise certain Sonic games that were coming out for their times. And there was a lot of them. Sonic Chronicles, Sonic Shuffle, Sega All-Stars Racing Transform, Sonic 4 Episode 2, yeah, weirdly enough they never made a story to advertise Episode 1, Sonic Generations, Sonic Unleashed, even some of the mobile phone games like Sonic Dash and the 2012 remake of Sonic Jump. Well, I guess it's a good thing they never made one to advertise Sonic Runners, otherwise that would not have aged well. And last but not least, there's the ads. Yeah, they're not really Sonic-y, but it's nice to look back at them. Like those Hubba Bubba Max commercials, and I remember seeing a lot of those on TV. Bunt, Steal, Go Deep, Big League Chew. Oh jeez, this bubblegum ad would pop up in almost every frickin' issue. Man, these just really bring back a lot of nostalgic memories for me. Remember Yogos? Chewy on the inside and creamy on the outside. Remember all those Neopet trading cards? Remember when the Game Boy Advance SP was like the hottest handheld gaming system? Oh, and speaking of which, remember the Game Boy Micro? Yeah, that was a thing. As you can see, I have a lot of Archie Sonic issues. Not quite a complete set, but I have a good amount of them, whether they be the original comics or the graphic novel reprints. Oh yeah, and then there was the complete Sonic comic encyclopedia. Basically, it tells you almost everything you need to know about Archie Sonic's old timeline. I did try to collect all of Archie Sonic, but I later gave up when I noticed that a lot of these issues were becoming very expensive these days, especially the ones that never got the graphic novel treatment. The last time I went hunting for Archie Sonic was looking for variation covers of certain issues, specifically the ones that were made for the after the credits gimmick that they did. Basically the standard cover would have one ending, while the variation cover would have a different ending. Nowadays I just rely on scans to read on the ones I don't have, and I'm pretty sure that's how a lot of newcomers are able to find out about Archie Sonic. Not only were they not released in other countries like Japan or Europe, but I think it's clear that neither Archie or Sega have any interest in re-releasing anything from Archie Sonic again, which is a real shame. Anyway, to wrap up this retrospective, here are some of my personal favorite Archie Sonic comics in no particular order. The original miniseries, the one that started it all. This is basically your main introduction to when the series started off being more lighthearted before it became a little more serious and more heavy on the lore. Issue 19, just a cool story of Sonic teaming up with hundreds of versions of himself from alternate universes to stop an alternate version of Dr. Robotnik. A 3-part Mecha Madness story. Yeah, this is a story where Sonic ends up getting roboticized and the Freedom Fighters have to find a way to stop him. It's pretty epic. Like, part 1 starts off pretty decent, and then part 2 is this big battle against Mecha Knuckles and Mecha Sonic, and part 3 is the weakest part in my opinion. The Operation Endgame story arc. Sonic is framed for supposedly killing Sally, and Robotnik almost succeeds in destroying the Freedom Fighters once and for all. Sure, it has some problems, like part 3 has a lot of moments where they just jump the shark, but still, the final battle against Sonic and the original Robotnik is epic. Issue 175. Robotnik succeeds in destroying Knothole after all these years. and Sonic is left on his own when everyone else is captured. The following issues are also great, with the gang getting back together, the birth of new Mobotropolis, and the start of Robotnik's downward spiral into insanity. Issue 222. This one's a little more casual. Sonic and Sally going on a date and trying to put all their past drama in the past. So yeah, just a nice story for the Son Alley fans. The Mecha Sally Saga. Sally's been roboticized once again. Lots of tragedy, chaos, and a small glimmer of hope. The only downside of this is that the final outcomes are never really resolved thanks to the whole Super Genesis wave. And of course, the most common complaint is that it's a little too long, but still, it has a lot of great moments. And as for the stories from the new timeline, I guess I would go with the Sonic the Fighters adaptation. Really great character moments with the Freedom Fighters, Honey, Breezy, and of course the super special Sonic Search and Smash Squad. And that concludes my very, very lengthy retrospective on Archie Sonic. This was something I always wanted to do for a long time, and I figured the timing was right for its 30th anniversary and give it the respect it deserves. I mean, sure, technically the main series started in 1993, but the original miniseries where it all started was in 1992, so technically I'm going off of that particular route. Plus, I feel like this video is needed to better help people know that Archie Sonic was more than just all the typical drama that people bring up. Oh, the Ken Penders this and weird shit that, oh, it's nothing like the games and here ba-dir. Yeah, it's a real shame that kind of crap is still going on these days, with all the lies and misconceptions. So here's my advice. If you're planning on getting into Archie Sonic, don't go into the series thinking that it's all about Ken Penders and nothing else. Because there's plenty of other writers that were involved with this comic, with their own style of writing and all that. Think of Archie Sonic more like the further adventures of Sonic SatAM, if that makes any sense. Go into it with an open mindset. Don't rely on people bringing up the comics for cheap laughs or claiming that they've read the comics when they clearly haven't. And don't be one of those guys constantly going around saying, oh, Archie Sonic sucks, why? Well, the Game Grumps said they're terrible, so I'm just gonna repeat what they're saying and not experience it for myself and say what I think about it. Yeah, we got more than enough of that crap already. Go and actually read the source material in any way possible, whether it's physical copies or online scans or whatever. And yeah, there are some crazy stuff that happens in the comics, but hey, if we can easily accept all the crazy stuff that happens in the Sonic games and all the other official Sonic medias, why can't the same be said for Archie Sonic? What's so different about that? Now, I know the process of starting at the beginning can be very intimidating, knowing its very long history. Best I can offer is just be patient and take breaks if needed. I would like to try and make a video to help newcomers understand the different eras, so that way it might help them on their personal preferences on where to start. But that's a story for another time. For now, happy 30th anniversary to Archie Sonic, the world's way past cool comic.